Okay. Our vocabulary today is going to be on the formation of sedimentary rocks and fossil fuels, 5.7a. This is our TEK for this week and next week. And there are 16 words. I know some of you like to know ahead of time. So I will be expecting you to listen to the entire presentation as well as writing the vocabulary words and the definitions down in your journals. All right, the first word we're going to start with is burial. And that just means a process by which layers of sediment or dead organisms are covered by new layers of sediment. So, what does that mean? That just means that when something dies, okay, either any living thing, living organism, when it dies, and then over time something else falls on top of it, like sediment, pieces of rocks, other leaves, whatever, something falls on top of it, it's being buried. Most of us know what burial is where someone dies and we place their body in a casket and underneath the ground. It's buried. Same thing with dead organisms, okay? Look in your pictures, you've got fish, like skeletal remains, okay? And over here on the left side, you've got other dead organisms. All right, next word, coal. Coal is a solid fossil fuel that is formed from the concentrated remains of plants over very long periods of time. Okay, so what that means, a lot of us know that there's coal that we use to heat our homes. However, coal is called a non-renewable resource, meaning it takes millions and millions of years to regenerate, to make new coal. So, people, scientists, are looking for alternative ways to heat our homes and produce energy besides using coal. So, coal is formed from dead plants, not animals, plants. Just remember, plants, coal plants. Okay, and then whenever anything dies, you have to apply heat and pressure and millions of years, and then you'll get that product. This particular one that we're talking about is coal, and you need dead plants, heat and pressure, millions of years. Next, compaction. Compaction is our third word, and compaction just means a process by which sediment is pressed and squeezed together. Okay, so think about when you lay something down on top of something. Okay, that item on top may not be completely squeezing the bottom item. However, it is compacting down on it, it's pressing down on it. Think of the human, what did we talk about before in class? The human body, where one person lays down, right? And then like maybe your whole family comes and they all jump on top of you and they're pressing down. That's compacting, okay? All right, next, erosion. Erosion is just the movement of sediment by wind, water, or ice. Okay, so if we had a giant rock outside and every time it rained or the wind blew, little tiny micro flakes flake off that you can't really see, or maybe you can, okay, depends on how big of a chunk of piece of sediment gets flaked off, and it's carried away by wind, water, or ice. Look at this picture here. This is so cool. This is what erosion and weathering have done to this giant rock. Look at the way it's completely formed it. Now, do you think in 10,000 years from now it's going to look the exact same? No, it's going to be weathered and eroded even more. All right, next, explore. Your next word is just explore, and it just means to search or investigate. Okay, you're just explorers go and they look and they investigate and they discover new things. Next, formation. Formation just means the way something is structured or created. So I got two images here for you. The first one here is an image of the formation of the land and the sea. Okay, you can see the different layers of sediment that have formed over time. The second one is the traditional, picture of what you might think formation means, and it's in how something's formed. Okay, so the birds here are making a V formation. You might say the formation of the lunch line is that you go in from the hallway, you enter the line, you grab your milk, you grab your plasticware, you get your tray, you go down the line, you see Miss Perez at the end, and you go out and have a seat. That's a formation. Okay, someone created that. All right, next, fossil fuels. Fossil fuels is a natural, non-renewable fuel such as coal, oil, or natural gas formed over millions of years from the remains of living organisms. What does all that mean? That means those dead organisms, remember, plants and coal are best friends. You have to have dead plants to make coal. But so you've got dead plants or dead animals, anything living, anything that was once upon a time alive. A rose petal, okay, it falls off, it died, it falls off, it gets buried in sediment, and buried, and buried, and buried, and buried, okay? And after millions of years and lots of heat and pressure, a fossil fuel has been born. So, because it takes millions and millions and millions of years to create, that's what makes fossil fuels non-renewable. Non-renewable just means it cannot be renewed quickly. Yes, there are fossil fuels being formed right now, but if it hasn't been millions and millions and millions of years, we're not going to get the benefit from it. And you know how long 1 year is. It takes millions upon millions to create fossil fuels. So in your picture, you have an oil rig that's digging for oil, okay? In the center picture, you have coal. And in the last picture, you have natural gas. Natural gas is just a gas that comes from, it's a fossil fuel. And it's what makes the fire come out of your stove if you have a gas stove at home. All right, next, heat. Heat is just a transfer of energy between two objects when the objects are different temperatures. Picture on the left says warmer object. It transfers heat to the cooler object. And the second picture here is heat coming from the earth. Now, you should know that the center of the earth, the core, is the hottest place. The inside of the earth is super hot. Well, that heat energy has to go somewhere. It goes up. Heat rises. I have a 2-story house. In the wintertime, when I have the heat on, it's hotter, extremely hotter upstairs than it is downstairs because heat rises. In the summertime, when I have the AC on both floors of my house at like 70, it's still 78, 80 degrees upstairs in the summertime because heat rises. And so the downstairs is really nice and cool, but the upstairs is super hot. So when heat comes out of the earth and it hits that sediment that's been buried for millions and millions of years and compacted on, right? It's pressed down on it. Then you get fossil fuels. So that's how heat comes into play. All right, next word, natural gas. Natural gas is a flammable material, right? That's why flames come out of the stove. Without a definite form, produced by remains of marine organisms buried under layers of sediment found near oil deposits. Gosh, what does that mean? That just means that some dead fish or sea life, any dead, when it says remains of marine organisms, that's just dead sea life. Dead sea life was buried under layers and layers of sediment, other junk, and it's found near oil deposits. And so whenever people mine for it, go and retrieve it, it comes out in a natural gas. And they bottle it up and they send it out to people who have gas utilities like your stove. Some people's hot water heaters are powered by natural gas. And so that's how that works. Now, what are you going to do when that natural gas runs out? Hence, people are looking for alternative ways to power their homes. Next word, oil. Oil is another flammable liquid Okay. Flammable just means that if you put a fire to it, it's going to go poof. Okay, it's going to blow up. A flammable liquid produced from the remains of marine organisms. There's that marine organisms again, which are dead sea life buried under layers of sediments for millions of years. So same thing as before, as the natural gas. You need something dead. You need something that was alive and had energy coming in from the earth or from the sun. When it dies, it still has energy left in it. Okay, everything dies and you still have energy. When I die, I'm still going to have energy in my body. When you die, you're going to still have energy in your body. So when you die, and then things are buried on top, sediments buried on top, okay, and pressed down because it's so heavy. There's so much other sediment on top of you. And then millions and millions and millions of years go by. Okay, then out comes oil or coal or natural gas, depending on what item died. All right, next, organic matter. Organic matter is just the waste and remains of plants and animals. Organic matter just means something that was organic, which something was alive. It died, and now it's the waste. In my two little display boxes over there, I have a core, apple cores, okay, and the other box has paper in it. Now, the apple core would be considered organic matter because it was an apple. It grew from a seed. The paper is not considered organic matter because, yes, it does come from trees once upon a time. However, the paper has gone through chemical processing and other things to make it not organic. Therefore, that would not be considered organic matter. Also, which is another reason why I've taught y'all before, in those boxes, the apple core will break down, okay? However, the paper is not breaking down, and it's over a year old. So it's important to not litter. Just saying. All right, next, pressure. Pressure just means force of objects pushing on other objects. This picture I found on the internet is of sedimentary rock, and you can see that because you can see the different layers in it. While it may not be perfectly neat layers, you can still see layers, okay? And all those layers are formed by all that pressure. So imagine those little pieces on the ground, closest to the ground where the little green, like, plant life is. Imagine how, if they had feelings, how they would feel with all that huge rock on top of them. They'd feel pretty squished, right? They'd feel very compacted. All right, sediment. Sediment is what we've been talking about, and that just means small particles of rock, soil, sand, or shell, which is deposited by wind, water, or ice. All sediment is tiny rocks, soil, like you find outside, in the ground, dirt, basically, sand at the beach, or shell, and that is shell, like shells from fish and not fish, but sea life. Okay. And they're all deposited by wind, water, or ice. So what that means is, like, let's take the sand, for instance. So you've got a sand pile. I blow on it. Okay. Those little tiny flakes are going to fly off into the air by wind. Okay. If I'm blowing on it, that's the wind. They're going to fly off and land somewhere. Every time I blow, that's going to happen. Eventually, that original sand pile is going to take a different shape, okay? And those sediments that flew off and landed are going to eventually pile up and make new things. Not new things, but new designs, okay? And that's called deposition. And that's called erosion. However, when it lands, that's called deposition. And we'll get into that a little later. All right, sedimentary rock. That's just layers of rock that are formed when that sediment is deposited and then compacted and cemented over time. So I've taught you what sediment is. Sediment is just the little flakes that fly off. Deposited is when it actually lands. Compacted is when other stuff on top of it lands on top and presses down. And now cemented just means when water comes over it, it kind of makes it form like a cement, like cement. Okay. You get all this deposit, all these sediments together, then you pour water on it and it makes like a real tight cement. But this sedimentary rock you see here, all the different layers, that didn't happen overnight. That happened over millions and millions and millions of years. All right, our last word is weathering. And that just means the breaking down of rocks by wind, water, and ice. Again, that would be wind that formed that circle in that giant rock. Okay. I don't know if you know, but the Grand Canyon is formed by water. And I'm not quite sure what that is exactly, but I can tell you it looks like it's been formed by wind. And ice, how does ice break down rocks? Because if there's a tiny little crack in the rock and water gets in there, right, from rain, and it's kind of still there whenever freezing temperatures come, then that water turns into ice, and that ice expands that rock. Okay? And so different rocks can break down by ice that way. All right, and this is your vocabulary. Make sure you have all your words in there. All right, bye.